Hi everyone, welcome to Zita's Healthy Beginnings World of Women podcast. Um, Today is February the 14th and it is Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine to everybody. Um, Today we actually have double celebration. One is Valentine's Day, which all of us, or pretty much most of us, are aware of. And the other one that I know almost every person is aware of is the Black History Month. And today we are blessed to have Dr. Tucker in our midst, who has an ample opportunity and the privilege also to have gained enough knowledge about Black History Month, and I'm sure also the Valentine's Day and Saint Valentine and all that. And this evening we are actually focusing on the Black History Month. And personally, I don't really have a whole lot of information about Black History Month. I am Black, I'm African, and I know Black History Month has become part of our life here in the United States. Both immigrants and those who have lived here for longer time. And today we really wanted to talk to our audience actually about Black History Month. We want people to learn a little bit more on what that means for us here in the United States. And Dr. Tucker, for me, is the right person to really give us that information. And Dr. Tucker has a long, great, wonderful background, and she is going to share with us her background, even though we have it already. But I need her to really go back a little bit and share with us and tell us her job, her role, the service she has given to the public, to Christians and Catholics, and the Archdiocese of Pittsburgh for a long time, longer than 20 years actually, and also her role as a mother, as a Black African American mother, and also how Black History Month, what that means for her, how that has also impacted her own life, and what she would, the message she will have for us today as we reflect on this precious month. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Tucker. Um, oh, it looks like we lost her something. Hello?
Hello, did you like the magic? I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. All right. Okay. So we lost her, but she's gonna rejoin us, and here she comes. Um, yeah. I know technology is great when it works. Sometimes it gives you, food for thought. And I was here describing her and what she has offered to the world. Didn't realize that she was cut off. But right now we are reconnecting her and would like her to, come on and share with us. Are you here with us now? Hello? Dr. Talk, are you here with us now? You're muted. So, Emily, do you know what is going on right now? Or did you disappear yourself?
Well, basically, you and Emily should be able to use requests to unmute.
I did a what? To unmute?
Yeah, there's a spot with her
Okay,
video.
all right. I did that. I clicked on that, but she's still muted. Oh, she's calling me again. I wonder what's going on. I got you in.
Well, you need to unmute me.
Oh, yeah, I tried to unmute you. I did. It says ask to unmute. And that's what I clicked on it. And it's still,
Is she on her telephone calling into Zoom? Because *6.
She's on her telephone calling me. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm talking about on Zoom. Because it's *6 on Zoom, and she's on her telephone line calling in.
Oh, so are you on the telephone or on the computer? Okay, what did you say she should do?
*6 unmutes her on a phone line.
You said star, with cards suggested *6. Hit *6. It should unmute you, he said. Did that work?
Nope.
Not
It's
yet.
still muted, so.
I apologize.
No, that's okay. I wonder what happened.
My fingers hit the.
Yeah, that can happen.
Are we wanting to?
Also, I cannot get video.
Yeah, at least if we can really unmute you, you can still talk to us. Yeah, I see here it's like.
Remember, guys, this is going out on YouTube.
What are you talking about?
This whole conversation is going on YouTube because YouTube is still going right now.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's going right now. We're trying
okay.
to fix it.
Okay.
What does that mean?
Okay. I just want to make sure I didn't know how long it went. Yeah, I just don't know how much longer it was gonna. What?
Okay. You know, your your history. Okay, what you've done in the past and what Black History Month means for you, and as a woman, as a Black American woman. So that's what I was saying before we got disconnected.
Okay. Well, it's in theology. And specifically Catholic theology. I have worked particularly with Black Catholics, African Americans in general, Hispanic, Korean, Vietnamese. Some of the I've done both in teaching and working with churches to spend looking at cultural diversity, looking at African American history, looking at culture, and looking at our roots, and also examining racism and working towards its elimination. With all of that, all of that history in the United States as African Americans isn't something we could acknowledge during February. There is a tendency to look out during February and say there's nothing else to talk about the rest of the year. If we give you one example, you can go to get source from, say, a church or school or an organization, and let's say it's February 20th, and some of the songs say, I think it's because everyone is on over, and we haven't done anything for the thing, and you come and speak. Over you or something you will do. It's it really is about that point if you don't come to them and read something, then how important is that celebration?
Zeta? Zeta?
Yes.
Am I able
Yes.
to make a request? I think what might work better is if we kind of talk a little bit more about the background between you and Greta, and then if you can get Emily Greta's phone number, Emily would be able to connect into Zoom and then give Greta a call, and she can answer the telephone call to be in this, because the sound quality is not real, it doesn't lend towards people listening to what she's saying. So I think if Emily is able to make a phone call, if you're able to text Emily and hear Greta's phone number, Greta could receive a phone call from Emily and we'd have good sound quality. Does that work?
Okay. Okay, I'll do that. Okay, but the talker, that's what we're gonna do. Let me send Emily your number so she can call you. And probably saying that the quality of, this my is not really good. Sorry, what did you say? Oh, okay. Emily, did you get it? Okay. Thank you.
No, I have not gotten her phone number. If you've texted it.
Emily.
What is the question, Zeta? Your sound is not coming through real good now, Zeta, so.
Kurt, what is the phone number in the chat?
If you got a phone number in the chat, Emily, the idea is we need you to connect into.
Well, I don't
Zoom.
know. I didn't get the whole phone number, Kurt. I just got the
Okay.
412.
Okay. Working on it.
From the face forward to 600 2250.
2250. Okay, 412-600-2250. Okay.
Got it or not?
All right, so Greta put her phone number in the chat of our Zoom session.
She did not get it.
Yeah.
But Emily should be able to get it out of the chat. Right
Yeah,
now.
I got it now.
All right, so Zeta, while Emily's working on that, maybe we could back up a little bit and kind of get to how in the world do you know Greta, like what brought up her being here tonight, and maybe if we just set the stage like that, by the time we understand where Greta came into this and once you understand about Greta's background further, maybe then she'll be ready to bring her part in.
Okay. Yeah. Like she started introducing herself to talk. This year, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I go to the church. We belong to St. Benedict de
Zita's
Parish.
is bad.
St. Benedict de Parish is the parish diocese of Pittsburgh, and it's predominantly African Americans that attend the church and immigrants, actually. Black immigrants from Africa, from other parts of the world, attend church at St. Benedict de Parish. And that was how I got to know her. So it was through that the same church we attend, but also I've known her
Yes, I
way
know.
back to the church. She belonged to the Sisters of St. Joseph, Baden, and she was one of the associates. And I got to attend some of the, religious meetings and conferences. She was the director, religious, just what do you call them? Therefore, in the Pittsburgh diocese. So she was in charge of that and minority group in the diocese of Pittsburgh. So I knew that through that things. And I also know her daughter. Her daughter is a public health so she and I work together in county health department. So yes, I have a lot of connection with her. And I have known her to be strong Christian mothers. I have known her as someone who is pretty strong and have traveled, mostly through faith and faith sharing. We have also attended seminar together talking about the history of the Black American history. We have also taken a workshop that really, talks about um, Black Americans, the United States. So that's the background I have. And right now, I did talk to her last time and I did a request that she come and talk to us because I feel she has the knowledge, she has the exposure, and she can actually give us the information that will be helpful to us as we celebrate Valentine's Day, caring day, a loving day, how do we reconcile with the Black History Month in the United States. So that's the background I have.
Come
I
on.
hope that helps.
Yeah, that's good. So it should just be momentarily that Greta comes on because she should just be answering a phone call momentarily. But any other comment you want to get in quickly about Valentine's Day or Greta's role here, Black History Month, kind of keep things going?
Hey, when we talk about Valentine's Day, I think it's Valentine. Hello?
Hi, Greta. Yep, we have Greta.
Hello. Okay, so we have you. And sorry about all. Can you hear me now? Well, yeah. Okay. As Vita was saying, our background is from St. Benedict the Mormon Church here in Pittsburgh. And what I was sharing earlier was my
work in the Catholic Diocese of Pittsburgh with various cultures and groups, and relating my experience around Black History Month. And when Zita and I were talking about Black History Month, but also just the whole theme of love. But first I wanted to just share with you my experiences during Black History Month and why I think it is important for us to look at how this celebration, which when I was growing up was a week, but now a whole month, why and how it pushes us to look at one another and our relationships with one another. And I think in American society, we've become so polarized that it's hard for us to see each other as people. Hello, I just went off. You're fine. We just did that for sound control. Okay. So you can hear me then? Yeah. We've become so polarized, it's hard for us to see, I think, each other as individuals, as people who are related. And as I said, my background has been in working in kind of church-related organizations, but also looking at how and what we have in common. And so as Zita and I were talking about it the other day, this day being Valentine's Day, in this particular month, what might be the connection? And from my experiences, I have found that for some, the question, and particularly within the white community, there are those who appreciate this particular month and celebration, and then there are others who say, why? What's the need for this month? And I think if we can look at what each group of people in this country bring to the table and have to share, then it's important to look at all of their history and contribution. And as an African American, we've not always done that. And so we've not always felt the love as a people in this country because of our history. And I think about the times when I was growing up, depending on your age, you might remember that this celebration was not a month. It wasn't Black History Month. It was a week. And I remember, I was trying to recall the other day, when did I really realize we had this Black History Week celebration? And I remember it was in middle school, my junior high, about 7th or 8th grade. And the teacher, and we only talked about Black History Week, which was the week of February the 12th. Because it had nothing to do with Valentine's Day. It had to do with Douglas's birthday was, I think, the 12th or that week, and Abraham Lincoln's birthday. And so teachers would discuss Black history, usually in history class, social studies classes. There was nothing said in science or art. And I remember our teacher would say, okay, tomorrow we're going to talk about Black history because it's Black History Week, so you don't need to bring any books or anything. And then after that one day, a 40-minute class telling us what we've already heard the year before. This is, pre-Martin Luther King. He had not yet been assassinated, and then his death came right after that. There was nothing about Rosa Parks. It was always about Harriet Tubman and Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. And then after that 40-minute class that day, then we would go back to the normal regular schoolwork. And so it kind of gave you the feeling of this isn't it. That's kind of how we felt. This really isn't important. And it wasn't until later, as I got older, that I realized what we had missed out on. That whatever I knew and learned, it wasn't from school so much. It was what our families gave us. It was out of the love and respect for our people. And so when I started thinking about this month of celebration, and in the midst of this, we have Valentine's Day. We romanticize love in this country, but what does it really mean to love? You know, they were talking about this morning on the news how many millions of people are going to become engaged today. How many people and how many rings there will be within soups and salads and pizzas. These, what do they call it? Conceal the ring, and you find it in a cake. And how many people are left today without anyone to care for them? There's no one who looked in on them. They don't have a significant other. Their family has moved away. There's death. There's violence. So we have all these wonderful things to celebrate from my perspective that God has given us and relationships, and then we have the other side. And so as an African American, I've been thinking about what is it that I'm called to do, not because we romanticize Valentine's Day, which is very important. He was a saint, and we're to express and show our love for one another. But how do we do that tomorrow? Not just today, but how do we do that next week? How do we do that? How do we share that with the person that we consider undesirable, that we don't want to be with or around? So I think we spend our time on Valentine's Day, but I think it goes beyond that. And I know, this is the day for romance and all of that, but I really think if we're talking about human love and how do we love one another, that this conversation is not about Valentine's Day, but it's about it every day. How do we love one another and our own families, people we might be estranged from? So those were some when she and I were talking the other day about Black History Month and some of the work I have been doing, and that your podcast is on this day of Valentine's Day. That's where I began to think, what does this day mean for me within this context of Black History Month? So that's a little bit about my background and what I've been thinking about after this invitation. So I appreciate this opportunity to share that. So any comments, any questions, any thoughts, what are your experiences? I would love to hear. Thank you so much for that sharing about that has to be especially in underline. Sometimes we don't want to know that other people.
You tend to really increase their own knowledge of one thing that they know. Or
So the Valentine's Day also, I'm that with Black History Month. I'm sorry. I was just going to say the celebration actually began, I think it was 1926, by Carter Woodson and a gentleman by the name of Moreland. I think it was Moreland. He was a minister, Protestant minister. And they had an organization, I think it was the National Association for the Study of Negro Life. I think today it's African American life and history and life, or life and history. So that's what, from back in 1926, and the whole purpose was to look at the contributions of African Americans in this country. And if we look at 1926, that was during the time when, Jim Crow, there were lynchings throughout the country, throughout the South, certainly segregation, but the North in the South, but the North was just as bad. And so that's really how this celebration came about. And it wasn't until the 70s that our country even acknowledged it officially through the executive branch. I think it was Gerald Ford who officially acknowledged the celebration of African American history. I think by then it was already becoming a month. Thank you for that information. So I was just wondering, so was this just a classification that you mentioned, the classification of the flag that then expanded to 1 month? That's correct? Yes. I at some point in life, I said, when did it become a month? Yeah, I don't think it was just, overnight. In some places, it was still a week, and then, eventually people started talking more about a month. But there were places within the United States, schools, towns, churches, municipalities, that didn't acknowledge it at all. I think with television and media in general, there's a lot more exposure for people, thinking about this, commercials. What we see happening today on television just around this month, we did not see 30, 40, 50 years ago. See that because of internet that it was clear that it's spreading the addiction of technology to help people, kind of share it with the rest of the world. I want to put it that way. That it's like a lot of people are getting embrace it. I started maybe to feel like talking about it. Why I'm asking you this question. Sometimes this is only makes me, as in the United States, something that didn't really go a lot while I was outside the United States about, I learned, about the history of African American. But the thing that I noticed that even professionally, whenever people start asking questions, like they do, because I never really have to be honest. I'm really ignorant of African American history. It's only when I came here that I started learning. So, but one thing I noticed was how sensitive people feel about, if you're talking about it. So I don't know whether that feeling of guilt, well, by the they talk about it, it's not just fears or anxiety or I was wondering, your other participants, their thoughts as well. I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but right now in our country, I think there is a reaction, and it's been going on for some time. And right now, I just maybe as each year as I get older, I'm feeling it more, and I think there is a reaction. Not just to Black History Month. That's really not the issue, the month, but to the role in history and participation of African Americans in this country. And I think there are some of our white brothers and sisters in this country what would be the way? That there is a perception that this is not important, that African Americans and other people of color are becoming too dominant, statistically, demographically. And I think there is a backlash. We've had it all along. But some of the Band-Aids that people put over their mouths before, social media has allowed them to remove it. And so what we hear and what we read, and I personally, that's part of what we are experiencing and hearing as to what's happening in Florida around the AP courses. The fact that we've heard all over the country and about wokeness and the burning, books, not literally burning them, but books in libraries and what can be taught and what history and role of African Americans in the country, what we can teach and can't teach. That this is not important. And so what does it mean to be an American in this country today? And that's where I think we are facing some really crucial issues that will have to be addressed. It's not going to be done overnight. And I think you have to have dialogue. And that's one thing I've learned in working with the other communities I mentioned, the Hispanics and Koreans and Vietnamese and Africans, that we have to have dialogue. And that because you lift up one doesn't mean others aren't important. So that's a concern. And that to me is not a symbol of love or how we respect one another. I think there is a lack of. And I think it has to do with a lot of fears as well. So I don't know the answers, but I would be just curious to see. I'm speaking from an African American perspective. I would love to hear what some of the others have to say from their own racial, cultural perspective, and also not being a Pittsburgher.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm going to in the meeting give us a perspective from listening to the consultant and say about this issue. This is no longer something that is easy. It's something we talk about. It's something we celebrate. It's also something we want to actually have a conversation with all about. And in the issue which we were speaking. So I want to invite both of you to give us your perspective.
Emily, where do you want to get started?
You can go.
You're muted.
No, I'm not.
There you go, our podcast engineer. Emily, are you there? You should be on the phone.
Oh, I didn't mute myself. Okay. You can go.
Oh, I can go. All right, Emily. So here we go. I'm going to give you some fuel for the fire so you can go ahead and get it stoked up after I'm done. But the idea of, the dialogue, I agree with because, as much as I've heard in the last decades of my life, I'm 51 years old, and so I think really this conversation, the more significant history for me is, in the last 20 years, basically in 1990, I graduated high school from a very, I'll say white-dominated community with the 80s in Milwaukee. I believe it was called like Chapter 220 or something. So there was an integration program that I at least experienced in the 80s where we were having busing from the city of Milwaukee out to the suburbs where I'm at. And so it was interesting timing for me in what this conversation is. And then I went up to UW-Madison, University of Wisconsin, Madison, where that really for me, as a teenager coming out of my teen years to being a college student and being at University of Wisconsin, Madison, more experiencing diversity. And also in 1990 was the Americans with Disabilities Act. So we talked about civil rights. I kind of remember how well the Americans with Disabilities components brought out. And in the last 10 years, disability advocates taught me about intersectionality. So when you talk about, Black Americans with disabilities, and, if you're talking, a lesbian Black woman with a disability, and just really start layering it. It's really interesting how this speaks to our country's history and culture and what we're dealing with at the time. So for me, with Martin Luther King Jr., I have a dream, and the messages that he poured from his heart, making available to us, and for gleaning them where, he spoke about children of all, races, creeds, and colors, playing together. I've said it in a completely separate context, about the idea of people and babies, like the year with yourself beginning. I've said many times in my life that really, to me, babies are born perfect. And then from there, society picks it all up. And so on the issue, it's very interesting where children pick up bias because until they learn it from the adult community, it's not there. Right. So then the dialogue to me is, where are kids picking up this bias? And what we need to do on an intergenerational basis to heal from the fear. Because I think that's where it comes from, because, economically in the States with the, lower, middle, and upper class, some political speakers talk about how, this class separation is like the middle class is all about, like, they don't want to become the lower class. There's like a little bit of a fear factor that they're, scared into, compliance or something because they don't want to, be in that class. When you talk about the, disproportionate, disadvantage, systemic oppression, and all these things that I've had to learn about the last couple decades, more so in the last 10 years for me, because I've been a part of some racial equity conversations, and, and it really brings to me the factor. So to me, the narrative to me is more of this boldness. The more we can make it bold, that now is the time, and we are the ones, and each individual can really steer the future in the right direction. Like, Zena and I met through the Happy Neighborhood Project, and Edwin and Barry and his wife out in Kioma, they remind us all the time, don't let the
Um, well, I'm helping with this podcast. um,
Are you?
um, I think if you're talking about just about today, I think the biggest thing is with this podcast right now.
I'm just wondering,
That is a good point. That when we have diverse teams working on this issue, that's really neat because it's not just the Black community producing a nice, wow podcast about, Black History Month and so forth. We have the diversity here that says, all on board to this kind of stuff. It's not just for Black Americans, actually more especially for those that aren't in the Black community.
and that was, yeah, and that's been part of the issue with Black history. It's not for African American people merely, it's history of our country. So when you're studying one thing and remembering it and reading it and celebrating, you're celebrating the entire country. I look at 30 years ago, how many of us were celebrating Cinco de Mayo? Now it's becoming mainstream, celebrating in January Chinese or Asian New Year. So I think there is this intersectionality between our cultures and what we can do. I also think that fear can mobilize and immobilize people. As well as what can we do, but I'm afraid to step forward. And how do we get people to let those guards down? Because the fear keeps us from recognizing and appreciating. And in my experiences, sometimes people are just so afraid of stepping out. And how do we help them? I think it's taking them, sometimes it's literally taking them by the hand.
Yeah, let me share an interesting happening close to my home here. In working on disability advocacy and disability agency here in Wisconsin. And, I'm just of Milwaukee, in the county next to Milwaukee County, Waukesha County. And what was interesting to realize is somebody that, I respect greatly for his work here in Wisconsin, helping, legislatively and bureaucracy and, the work that agencies are doing, to make shifts in the right direction. And he's a very successful business person. So he brought business acumen to great community solutions. And one of those, proposally, was right close to me here in a city just south of me here in the county. Again, just west of Milwaukee. And he was putting this multi-family housing unit together, and something that, is going to be very affordable housing. And, he was in disability advocacy, so is going to go ahead and help be in universal design, and kind of really be a great place for people to stay in as well. So a great social solution. What happens to this man? He receives threats. This is 8 years ago. So 2023, and you're talking, right around the cusp of celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. He's getting a threat about this whole thing, don't participate. Yeah, and the idea is that when he found out, dealing with this threat, found out it was rooted with the KKK and it's such a great thing. And to put that element of fear out there, so that this great man, chose not to do the project.
Oh, he chose not to participate.
Yeah, because of the KKK.
Yeah, because of the KKK, the cult got squashed because the local authorities and the people who are doing this just saw that it was going to be bringing in an element of chaos that they did not want to be dealing with. So as much as this man would have done it, the people around him who he counted on to get the permits and to do all the work, nobody was participating with the project because of these threats.
And so that's an example of fear.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we think that the KKK and such organization went away, but just until recently, Florida had more hate crimes, followed by Pennsylvania.
Yeah, now here in Milwaukee, the city and the region of Milwaukee also, has a lot of racial divided, and actually, to the detriment of, unfortunately, our black community here in Milwaukee. Just Milwaukee's got a lot of healing right in there with that issue of divide.
And I think
I don't know how much it's hate crime exactly, or we're leading in that way, but one way or another, the presence of divisiveness over the racial element is very, very much in the extreme, where nationally Milwaukee is not a good place, on that topic.
And from my experiences working with various groups throughout the country, exactly what you said is what we hear in Pittsburgh, what we hear throughout. In terms of housing, sometimes it's not the top of the list or anti-Black or anti-Hispanic, but it's anti-person with disability and anti-LGBT community. So it's, I think there are similarities, and I think we are being driven by fears and those who are afraid of, I just call it the browning of America. I think people are afraid of losing power, whatever they perceive this power to be. And so that's why I believe the reactions that I hear and see on the news, and particularly in these last 4 to 6 years, the hatefulness, those to me are signs of deep division that didn't just start overnight. So the question is, how do we then work together and to those of like minds, but how do we challenge those kinds of comments, the rhetoric, the actions that we hear from politicians, we hear in communities, and unfortunately, we hear and see in faith communities. Because I think that fear is widespread, equal opportunity fear of the other, whatever we perceive that other as.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up about faith community because, the last 20 years, or I guess about 20 years ago, it kind of came to me where it was like all about the most segregated day in America, Sunday. on Sunday morning, and you look at how it's still very racially polarized, how people are in congregations. Now, obviously, that's a stereotype, but yeah, if we look at the macroscopic level, you look at on Sunday morning across the country, you have people congregating in their faith community based on race, by and large. But, you know, there's a lot of faith communities that are excellent in diversity, but that's more of the few and far between, unfortunately.
And see, that quote came, was it Martin Luther King? I think who said it. Anyway, it comes from the 50s, 60s during the civil rights era. Just an example of how segregated we are, and in terms of our churches. But if we look at the history of the United States, that has been our history. And within the Catholic Church, it was just as segregated as all of the other Christians. However, earlier on, from the Revolutionary period to the Civil War, the other Protestant communities would even allow slaves to conduct services, although there was segregation within those religious denominations. But it is, unfortunately, I think, still, the quote still stands. Now, Zeta was probably wondering because in our particular church, it is an African American personal affairs for African Americans, but we have a number for decades of white parishioners, Africans, Hispanics, and others. So it is an example of diversity, but that is not the norm here in Pittsburgh. It is the exception. And we probably only have one or two places where it would be the exception. We had interesting conversation. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. And I really appreciate you also sharing your perspective. Right? I think we're sitting in this country. We want to be for the country. It's not sorry, were you asking a question?
Yeah, I said, what you did last word you want to leave for and
The bigger present. So I enjoy hearing the comments of the men and women.
got it. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay. What did you say? Sorry, I think I missed it.
I wasn't sure of your question. That's all. Your comment.
Okay. Okay, so the next thing was you asked me in last month for the method as podcast a really really understanding it, but it's all of within content. What you want to you know, you may say the podcast also the education about all you're talking about.
Well, I do think women have the power to make a difference. We are making a difference. And I think we have the power to change our country.
Okay, thank you so much. I agree with you. And with that, I think I was in a member for the Connect podcast and it's really great. And just then, they want have a great night. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.